Yeah, some breaking news to tell you about here at Delta State's campus. Shortly after 10 o'clock, about a dozen police officers, local, state, and federal authorities, I believe, went rushing out towards the Greenville area. My sources say that the suspect, Shannon Lamb, was spotted by a Greenville police officer, that there was a traffic stop, and reportedly during that traffic stop, the suspect, Shannon Lamb, fled the scene on foot. So again, authorities now on the hunt for Shannon Lamb in the Greenville area. He's the person, of course, suspected of killing the woman in Gaucher and then the university professor here at Delta State. That's the latest from Cleveland, Mississippi. According to the city of Jackson, this is no small repair job. In fact, the pipe that's underground here was installed around the 1960s. It's actually made of concrete. The city has issued an emergency declaration just to try to expedite the process. 10 years later, and residents say Katrina is still having a dramatic impact on what can be redeveloped here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. For example, on the lot where I'm standing right now, you would have to build it much higher than you did before the storm. But residents who live here say perhaps the biggest barrier in rebuilding the Gulf Coast is in the challenge to find insurance for businesses and homes here. Clearly, Katrina was a game changer here in Bay St. Louis. They refer to this tree right here as the angel tree because survivors actually held onto its limbs to ride out the tremendous storm surge. Now, according to Pearl Police, it might have just been ruled a horrible Saturday accident here at this Walmart in Pearl if the two suspects had stayed to offer assistance to their 85-year-old victim and been truthful with investigators. 44-year-old Rebecca Bobo turned herself into Pearl Police just after midnight Tuesday morning. She wasn't allowed to go home, instead locked up in the Rankin County Detention Center. Pearl Police also want to arrest her mom, 71-year-old Lois Warnock, who was driving this motorized grocery cart Saturday morning that plowed 85-year-old Erling Sturgis into the ground. The victim, who was on her walker just before the crash, now has 2 broken vertebrae in her neck, 3 in her back.
I can't understand why someone would do this and then just despair.
That was but one sticking point in the grocery cart assault case, according to investigators. Not only did the mother and daughter walk away from the injured woman soon after the collision, but surveillance footage shows both driving away with the tailgate of their vehicle lifted. Police suspect it was to block the view of their license plate. When I talked to Rebecca Bobo on the phone, she said it was because her AC wasn't working.
We should have never left there. I realized that was a mistake. We should have stayed and seen about the little old lady, and I'm very sorry.
Both women are charged with simple assault, but 44-year-old Rebecca Bobo is charged with misrepresentation to a law enforcement officer. In short, because authorities have questions about what she said she did after the collision.
Can't really go into the ABCs of that, but I can obviously say that, you know, they were asked to give a fact that they knew to be true already before the case started, and then they immediately went the other direction with it and told them opposite information.
It might have started as a horrible accident at Walmart, but now this caught-on-camera grocery cart case is headed before a judge. Well, police say 71-year-old Lois Warnock lives out of state. They have been talking with her, but there is no indication when she'll turn herself over to authorities. I also spoke with the victim's family. Erling Sturgis is still in the hospital, 5 broken vertebrae, wearing a back brace today and able to sit up, but no indication when she gets to go home. Live in Pearl, Scott Simmons, 16 WAPT News. It was a day for a lot of thank yous in the Brookhaven area. Also time to make good on a deal made with a little scared boy who was trapped in a well. They made sure they honored Gabe's promise. It might have sounded like an emergency response, but actually it was a welcomed return call at this home outside Brookhaven. Many of the rescuers who helped pull little 4-year-old Gabe Albritton out of a deep, dark well Monday evening
pepperoni, did you say it was your favorite?
Came back Saturday to make good on a promise.
Promised him some pizza and a ride on the fire truck if he'd step in the loop so we could pull him out.
A well just 24 inches wide, somewhere between 25 and 40 feet deep. It was Chris Reed who talked to that little boy for more than 3 hours, coaxing, comforting, hoping to convince 4-year-old Gabe that they would get him out of that well.
We're just talking to him the whole time, trying to keep him calm, while everybody else here was working to get him out.
How did you go down in that hole?
Odie.
Gabe fell in after trying to rescue his own little dog, Odie, that had fallen in before him. An anguishing memory his mother would rather not recall.
If it wasn't for these people, my son would not be here. This is, I mean, he has been talking about this ever since it happened. He was wanting to go ride on that fire truck.
Gabe, with his mom at his side, got that fire truck ride, leaving just a few feet from the now gravel-filled well that gave them such a scare. A chance to relish a turn of events that could have ended far worse.
A host of volunteer and full-time firefighters pitched in to pull Gabe out of that old well and then get that rope around his little dog Odie to pull him out, too. Ole Miss Chancellor Dan Jones is vowing he will not step down after the IHL said he's out of a job in September. Today, in an exclusive one-on-one interview, Jones told me that the news caught him by surprise Friday.
I'm not sure I completely understand what's happened.
On the heels of a fight with cancer, Dr. Dan Jones says the governing board of IHL dealt him another shocking blow Friday when it announced they would not renew his contract. During 6 years at the helm of Ole Miss, Jones led the university to record numbers in enrollment and fundraising. But he says his fights with the board may have taken its toll. Still, he didn't think it would come to this.
I'm passionate about doing what's right. I'm passionate about doing what's best for the University of Mississippi. And so I have been passionate, and certainly I'm capable of stepping on people's toes. Personally, I don't see anything that I've done that would break the relationship and break the trust that we've had between us that would allow me to continue as chancellor.
Jones says IHL wanted the authority to name a new vice chancellor at UMMC. Jones says as head of Ole Miss, that was his job and he wouldn't give in. And despite speculation that the governor's office had something to do with it, he made that point clear.
As far as I know, Governor Bryant is not involved.
So far, the governing board of IHL has only issued a written statement as to the decision to part ways with Dr. Jones. It is guarded, but it does point to questions about the operation of UMMC in Jackson.
The Commissioner of Higher Ed, Dr. Jim Borsig, issued a written statement Saturday. In part, it says, the concern centered on financial issues at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. The board had discussed these and related concerns with Dr. Jones over a lengthy period of time, and these matters were not corrected to the satisfaction of the Board of Trustees. Jones says that debate centered on contracts management and computer software to manage purchases that he admits could have been implemented better.
In the last few years, we've invested more than $100 million in new enterprise software. And whether you're in New York or whether you're in Mississippi, you don't make that transition to using that sophisticated software perfectly. We still are making shifts in our culture.
Former Netscape CEO Jim Barksdale and author John Grisham are just a few of the high-profile supporters who have expressed outrage over the Dan Jones decision. Jones says he won't step down, and if there's a fight to keep the job, it's a job he would like to keep.
This is a personnel decision that the board has made. So if there's a parade about trying to have the board change its mind, somebody else needs to lead it. I will simply say that I would consider it a privilege to continue as Chancellor of the University of Mississippi.
The IHL vote was not close, 9-2, not to renew Jones's contract. There are various social media sites now up and running designed to try and keep Jones in place. There's also a rally scheduled at the university's Lyceum for this Wednesday at noon. Still a stunned campus here at Delta State that remains on lockdown tonight. Local, state, and federal authorities still keeping a lookout in case the suspect does reappear. A lot of people still coming to grips not only with the life that was taken here on campus, but also because of the person believed to have pulled the trigger. It took only a few minutes for this small college campus to go into high alert.
It was just have your mind wondering, like, what's going on, because they weren't telling us anything.
It wasn't no good feeling. I knew something bad happened, though, but it wasn't no good feeling being locked down.
Parents worried about their kids on campus. Students trying to understand what went wrong.
Lock the door, put all the tables in front of the door, and just lock everything up. Someone tried to get in at some point. We didn't know what it was.
Classroom buildings were placed on lockdown. The chaotic morning pushed into the evening as investigators revealed their suspect was 45-year-old Shannon Lamb, a professor in the social sciences department at Delta State. He is believed to have killed Amy Prentice on the coast at Goche and then traveled straight to Delta State to kill Ethan Schmidt.
Nice guy. You know, I hope it wasn't him.
Cameron Montgomery is a fellow teacher at Delta State who says he knew Shannon Lamb, but didn't know he was capable of doing what authorities say he did.
When you heard his name being mentioned as a suspect,
Said it couldn't be him. Couldn't be him.
Stand by.
The campus remains on lockdown here tonight, and classes are canceled tomorrow. Counselors from surrounding universities in the region are being brought in tomorrow morning to start counseling. Both students and staff still coming to grips with this tragic turn of events here on campus. Live at Delta State, Scott Simmons, 16 WAPT News.